Alright guys, welcome back to the second episode. It's about 6 o'clock in the morning, so I'm sorry if I have no energy for you. But today we're going to be covering a lot of problems that you're going to run into with your grow. First off, we're going to be talking about pesticides. The pesticides I use in my grow, especially for these all organic grows that I'm going to show you with this one. First we have Nukem. It's a citric acid pesticide. It's going to be good for your aphids, your spider mites, powdery mildew, stuff like that. It's kind of one of my preventatives. And then I have another preventative. This is SNS 209. Active ingredient is rosemary, I believe. Yeah, rosemary, water, soap bark, humic acid. I like to use this one. Both those ones are like my preventative. Have small problems, don't have problems yet, but want to treat it before we get problems. That's what I'm going to. And then if I ever come across big problems, I actually see spider mites, I see aphids, I see any big problems, I like to use neem oil. This is Neem Max. To me, there's no reason to go any more stronger than this, but this does the job for just about everything. It's a fungicide, insecticide, miticide, and nemicide, and it's organic. So, I mean, you can't really not have neem oil in your garden, in my thing. I know people that like to use a lot of different other chemicals, some stronger chemicals, some more synthetic chemicals, but I like to keep it as organic as possible. Today we're going to be spraying with the SNS 209. I don't have any bugs. I haven't seen any bugs other than a few no aphids. I haven't seen anything but a few fungus gnats and some moths and stuff like that that we'll always see when it starts to get cold. We're trying to come inside and hide from get out of that temperature outside. The big thing about spraying is full coverage, getting under your leaves. I like to get the soil a little bit in case I have any larvae or eggs laying down on the top of the soil. It'll also help with, any diseases that are going on in your soil, so don't be afraid to get a little bit on the soil. With the neem oil, I'll actually do a root drench. So I'll mix it up and I'll water with a neem oil water. And no, I'm not worrying about the pH when I'm doing that, because if I'm root drenching, I'm having other problems. Generally, probably some type of fungus in the root system that I'm trying to kill. But this SNS, trying to find the, alright, from 1 gallon. 1 gallon covers 555 square feet. Entry level, mix 2 tablespoons, 32 milliliters of concentrate to 1 gallon. Alright, so 32 milliliters to 1 gallon for this SNS. I have my trusty shot glass over here. Shot glasses are 30 mils. I'm just going to do 1 good shot glass. And a tiny bit. I'm not too worried about going over with this stuff. It's just rosemary oil. It's not going to burn your plants. It's not going to do anything weird with your pH in your soils. And when you're doing this, fans off, lights off, because you want it to set on your plant for as long as possible. If your fans are on, it's going to dry it up really quick. It's not going to be able to take effect. If your lights are on, you could get a burning effect on your leaves from the water and the oils setting on there and working as a magnifying glass, especially with LEDs and HPSs and stuff. LEDs are actually a little bit better than HPSs, but I recommend turning off any strong lighting. So there's 1 gallon water, there's your 32 mils of SNS. perfect. And usually, actually, when I'm doing this small of plants, 4 or 5, I would have took them into my bathroom and put them in the bathtub and just sprayed them and let them dry off in there. First I'm getting the pressure, figuring out where I didn't put the two together, right? Alright, let's see if it works. Air out. Perfect. Yeah, I like that. I got the sprayer off of Amazon for like 30 bucks. Put one plant in here at a time. And like I said, you just want to make sure you get really good coverage. People might say you're overspraying. I'd rather overspray than underspray. Overspraying can harm your plants because, like I said, you're going to change pHs in your soil. You might suffocate them with the amount of oil you're putting on your plants as you're drying on your plants. But you know what happens if you underspray? If you underspray your plants, those pests, it's like not taking enough of your antibiotics. You're giving them just enough for their systems to see what that chemical is that's trying to harm them, but not enough to actually kill that pest. And so what it's going to do is it's going to build resistance. And so the next time you might go spray, you might say, hey, nothing really happened. I'm going to do a stronger dose. It's not going to work because you've already built resistance to that bug. And what a lot of people don't understand, oh, it's not going to happen with one spray. It won't happen with one spray. But these bugs have been dealing with 150 years of people spraying agricultural pesticides on them. They're already building why do I keep saying resilient? Resistance to these chemicals. And that's why I like neem oil is, through a lot of studies, they found that bugs have a very hard time building resistance to it. So right now, we're getting under the leaves, over the leaves, in the pot a little bit around the stem, just making sure we're covering this plant. Perfect. Now you should be wearing gloves if you're going to handle these plants. This is just rosemary oil, so I'm not too worried about it. That and my gloves are in my work truck at work. I do apply all the pesticides at the greenhouses where I work, so I just left all my equipment in the truck. I'm supposed to be spraying this morning right after I get done making this video. And just remember, when you're during the week, just always look under your leaves, check down the stem, looking for any new bugs. Definitely when you're using that neem oil, gloves, eye protection, mask. I don't really think you need to go respirator and all that, but it wouldn't hurt. And a big thing with using chemicals is you have to keep your pets away from here. You do not want your cats coming in here. Cats are very, very, very what's the word I'm looking for? Sensitive to some of these chemicals, especially neem oil. If you have cats, you might want to look from something else other than neem oil, because if your cats come in here a day or two after you spray and they start eating your leaves, it'll kill them. It will kill them. So you have to be very careful. I recommend don't let your pets in your grow room anyways, because especially like dogs and stuff, because where do you let them use the bathroom? Outside. What do? Roll around on the ground. What's all outside, all over the ground? Bugs, eggs, pests, disease. Stuff your dog would never even know is on his fur, but the moment he comes in here, contamination. And I know people that let their dogs in here and stuff, and it's fun, and I love animals too, but just for the animal safety, plant safety, it's not a good idea. If you have cats, which I do have cats, I would probably recommend not using the neem oil. Find something different. Find something that's safe for your cats. I'm ultra particular about letting my animals in here. Mainly because I don't want them to get the pesticides. And then the second factor is, what happens when you let your animals in here? You got pet hair everywhere. What happens when you start flowering? You got super sticky buds everywhere with pet hair in the air. You're walking around kicking it up. I just don't want my dog's hair, as much as I love them, all over my nose. And I've seen it happen. That's why I'm kind of so particular about it. I used to work at a grow, and he had his dog, and he'd always let him come in, and I worked for him. What am I going to say? You know, I let him know I didn't really like it and everything, but I'm not going to have an argument over it. And so, get in there, and you know, we get down to our first harvest, and he's like, what's all this all over the bud right here? He's pulling off dog hair left and right. I was like, that's your dog's hair. And he's like, what do you mean that's my dog's hair? And I was like, it's dog hair. You're the only person that lets a dog in here, so it's your dog's hair. And he's like, you didn't tell me I was gonna have dog hair all over our weed. How are we gonna sell this? And I was like, I did tell you. I let you know I wasn't, you know, very for the dog coming in here due to pests and other concerns, and you didn't hear me out then, and now that you have a problem and it's affecting your money, you want to hear me out. So, you know, he kind of had to put his tail between his legs, and he's like, oh yeah, I remember having that conversation, and yeah, we're not going to let him in the grow anymore. So, you know, we spent a day running through our bud, making sure it didn't have dog hair on it. Any plants I found with dog hair, I put in the processing pile. He didn't know that, but I'm just not somebody that wants to sell it. I don't want to put my name on product, send it to a customer, and then they call the dispensary saying, what the heck, guys? I bought medicine from y'all, and it's covered in dog hair. All right. And I have some babies over here. I'm not going to spray them. My wife has some broccoli and tomatoes. I'm going to spray those. And I'm not spraying my seedlings over here of my autos either. Like I said, I'm not really seeing problems. This is a preventative spray. Cool. Spraying's done, and honestly, I probably only used about half a gallon, if that. So I'm going to use a lot of this spray outside on my plants that are still going. My roses, my tomatoes, my peppers. Got a few weeks until we got to freeze and knock those out. Alrighty. After spraying, I had a few questions on after my last video about runoff and how to test it and what to do if it's off and everything. I'm going to be very honest with you guys. You will not see me doing water runoff tests, testing my runoff, any of that in this grow. The main reason of me doing this grow was to do a cheap, affordable way to grow craft cannabis. My light is secondhand. These pots are secondhand. The dirt was given to me. And I am not sponsored by anybody. I don't have a single company behind me giving me any of this. This is just me going out, finding the products, negotiating with people, and trying to get a project going with the least amount of dollars as possible. Right now, total, I had the window unit from when we moved out of our last house into this house. We didn't have very good air conditioning in our life. So I have 3 of these window units just sitting there. That didn't cost me. But let's pretend that most of us aren't going to have a window unit just sitting around. So that window unit is a smaller one, cost 150 bucks. I have this sensor over here for the air conditioner. That cost $19.99 off of Amazon. I bought this Inkbird system and this air purifier, all from the same person that was shutting down their grow. with a 4-liter humidifier. So I got a humidifier, a 4-liter dehumidifier. So I got a humidifier, an active air humidifier that works great, a dehumidifier, Toshiba dehumidifier, 4-liter, and an Inkbird controller for $50. That Inkbird controller alone, if you go on Amazon, is like $50 to $75 or something like that. So, you know, if you live in Oklahoma or anywhere where there is a thriving, growing industry, there are people that are closing their doors at all times. Go on Facebook Marketplace, find the equipment, clean the equipment before you put it in your room, and if they are running a commercial operation with it, granted, they shut their doors, but the lights still work great, the humidifier still works great. Those stuff aren't why they shut their doors. It's usually because of bad business practices. So clean the equipment, buy the equipment, clean the equipment, use the equipment. It is just as good as buying. This dehumidifier would have cost me $300 brand new. I mean, if you put it in that deal, I paid like 15 bucks for it. But back to what I was saying. You're not going to see me doing any runoff tests because I'm doing an all organic amendment, super soil grow. There's no reason to be flushing anything out of these pots. The only time you're going to be doing runoff tests and problems like that is when you're using salt nutrients or in hydro. Those are what those rules are for. Those rules are not an organic grower's rules. You're not even going to see me do a flush at the end of this growing cycle when I'm ready to harvest. The way the nutrients are going to work, I get about 3 weeks of nutrients out of each. You know, when I re-amend my soil, I'll get about 3 weeks of food in there. And so when you're running, you know, a lot of these are heavy indica strains. They harvest in 8 to 9 weeks. So what I'm going to do is week 4 of flower, I'm going to do another feeding. I know I'm going to get about 3 weeks of food out of that. So what does that say? By week 7, my plants are going to be running out of organic nutrients in these pots, and they're going to be flushing themselves. Plus, the root system is not going to be uptaking as much nutrients in that time frame if you're not forcing it to. When you're using a synthetic nutrient, you're forcing that plant to uptake those nutrients because they are already bioavailable for that plant. They're already ready for that plant to uptake. Whereas an organic nutrient has to break down over time. The plant it has to become available to the plant. This system, to me, is the easiest way to grow cannabis, and that's why I'm growing it this way for y'all to see. So there's going to be no runoff tests. There's pHing is minimal. My water out here comes out at like a 6.8, 7. I almost have to do nothing to the water. I run it through a filtration. I use a Brita water filter to filter out any of the chlorines. I think it's getting chloramine as well. I'm not sure, but I know it's getting like 97% of the chlorines out. It's filtering microplastics. It's filtering all that other bull crap that's coming out. It's coming out pretty clean. Is it as clean as an RO filter? No, absolutely not. But I find that it works. RO filter, I mean, you have to have a station in your house essentially set up. It needs to be constantly draining because they're so slow. So if you're using, like, just for my humidifier, I'm using 3 gallons of water a day, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that will take about 3 hours for an RO to produce. And so you either have to turn it on when you come home, remember to turn it off before you go to sleep, turn it on before you leave for work and hope that it doesn't overflow the barrel by the time you get home. I just find it kind of a headache. There's always going to be leaks, filter changes and stuff. With my Brita filter, I have to change it every 6 months, and it works great for me. I think I get great growth out of it. I think that the microbes are still doing really good in the soil. And so with you having the organic nutrients in there, you're not worrying about salt buildup. You're not going to get lockout. You're not having crazy pH problems and stuff like that. All of the organic amendments act as buffers. And so I wanted to cover that real quick. And I do have a Blue Lab multimeter that when I worked at the grocery store, I won off of Blue Lab. And I have the upgraded soil pen in there. So I mean, if I wanted to, at a moment's notice, all I have to do is pull this pen out and actually put it in the pot, and it'll tell me what my soil is. I don't necessarily have to do runoff. It's kind of a little cheater thing. But after saying all that, let me tell you how to do runoff. All you're going to do is in this gallon pot, you're going to water it until you get about 20% runoff. It doesn't really need to be exact. Really, you want to water it until you get enough water for you to measure. But you have to understand the more water that you pour through it, the more you're changing the measurement because you're knocking some of the salt out. And so I actually like to do a very little amount of runoff, just enough to fill up a shot glass, test it, and that tells me how crazy amount of salts are in there before I've actually ever started washing any out. And you get it, you get your really high readings, you know, maybe you're feeding at a 500 ppm or a 600 ppm, and what's in your soil is close to a 500 or 600 ppm. That means that you have a lot of salt building up in your pot, staying in your root system, and you're going to keep adding nutrients. It's going to keep building and keep building. So what you do, the easy rule of thumb, is you dump 3 times the amount of water through the pot. So if you're getting weird pH readings, weird nutrient lockout, high nutrient readings come off on your runout, it all has the same fix. All you're going to do with that 1 gallon pot, with a 3 gallon pot, with a 5 gallon pot, you're going to take that number, multiply it times 3, and run that amount of water through it. And I know that sounds crazy because a 5 gallon pot times, that means you're running 15 gallons of water through this pot. Yeah, if you want to get everything washed out, you got to run a lot of water through it. So with that 1 gallon pot, I would run 3 gallons of water through it. So what that means is I would fill it up. You know, I usually leave about 1 inch around the rim for my soil. This one's a little higher, about a 1/2 inch. But I'm going to fill that up, let it sink through. I'm going to fill it up, let it sink through. I'm going to fill it up, let it sink through. I'm going to fill it up, let it sink through until I get 3 gallons of water through it. And generally that's going to pretty much wash out all salts, all micro, everything in your soil, and you're going to be starting with a blank slate again. And now you're going to have to rebuild your NPK in that soil. But guess what? We don't have to do that with organic nutrients. We're not getting salt lockout because we're not using salt. We're not getting crazy high pH numbers because all of the organic amendments act as a pH buffer. It's super simple, easy. And so that covers my pest, my nutrient flushing, time frame. Oh, time frame. Let me cover that a little more. So with that recipe that I told y'all last week, we have the base soil, which is Berger. We have azomite. We have blood meal. We have Roots Organics Foundation, Roots Organics Bloom, and then I used that new Plant Success mycorrhiza that had bacteria with a 312 slow release organic fertilizer in it. And so with all that added to my soil, I usually get about 3 weeks of nutrients of just water with that recipe. But the bigger the pot you put it in, the longer that's going to work. You know, if I would have put one of these small plants in a 10-gallon pot of my super soil, that thing probably would have went for closer to 6 weeks or 10 weeks before I had to feed it, because you know roots are gonna have to reach out, hit the new soil, run through the nutrients before we ever do that. So just the more soil you have for your plants to grab, the longer that's gonna last. But I generally say about 3 weeks. All right, I'll get these out of here. Get them set back up. Another big thing I wanted to cover, in between my videos, I usually try to do a video on Sunday. This one's coming out, it's gonna be Tuesday now. But every Sunday and Wednesday, I vacuum the entire floor. Dirt drops, fans are blowing, there's moths in here. It just gets dirty over the course of a week, and a clean grow room is a happy grow room. That's a number one, I keep on saying number one, everything's a number one rule. That's another big thing to keep bugs and pests and diseases out of your grow room. Keep a clean grow room. I mean, you walk into a house that's disgusting, you know, got crap everywhere, food dried up and stuff, and I know when I walk in there, I don't feel safe for my health. I feel like I'm gonna get sick. I feel like it's gross, and the plants don't want a gross house either. Bugs are gonna live in the leaves and debris and dirt that you live on the ground. They're gonna thrive in that stuff. So get the crap out of your grow room. You do not want that in your grow room. Once these plants dry off a little bit, I want to top them. I do a nice soft topping. They've already been topped once. I'm sure you can tell by some of their structures. I like to give a nice 2 or 3 toppings before I flip them in the flower. These are going to get 2 topped. Topped twice. 2 topped. However you want to say it. But we are definitely going to top them today. I'm going to give them about 10 more minutes, and I'm going to turn the fans on, make sure everything's dry, and then I'm going to go through topping them. But I have one more awesome thing to announce. We are trying to grow craft cannabis. We are using a big, strong light. And everyone thinks that, oh, strong light means big grows. And I know I said last week that there is a mathematical equation that you can do once you get going to figure out how efficient you're being, the grams per watts. Are you getting 1 gram per watt that you're putting in? Are you getting 2 grams per watt that you're getting in? That means you're doing great. If you're getting 2 grams of flower for every watt that you're putting in, you are being very efficient. That being said, our plants can't take full effect of this light without adding something to it. That something is CO2. Now, I don't see a lot of these home grower channels doing this. They all grow really high in, I mean, shoot, I haven't smoked any of their flower, Basement Grow, Canuck, all those guys. But the plants look awesome. I'm sure they taste awesome. But what surprises me is none of them talk about adding extra CO2 to your grow room and how important that could be for yields, for growth rates, all kinds of things. This is what they breathe. We can't give them a super hard job and grow really hard, but not give them enough oxygen to breathe it or to push that. It's like me sending you to a gym. You're not, you're not LeBron James. You're not one of these high-end athletes that's used to high-altitude training. And I put you in a gym and I tell you to go run a 5K, at 8,000 feet altitude, the same oxygen you'd get at 8,000 feet. Most of us are going to pass out. We're not going to be able to do that. When we tell these plants, hey, here's this big, strong light. I need you to grow as fast as you can. Here's all this great nutrients. I need you to grow as fast as you can. But I cut out its oxygen. It's not going to be everything it could have been. With that being said, I gotta go grab something and I'll be right back. So with that, how about this? This is our CO2 monitor. It's going to tell us what the CO2 in the room is like at all times. It is an active monitor. So as you can see, it changes constantly. See if I can make it go up. There we go. Went from 420 to 435. I don't know how accurate it truly is. I do know, just based off my past experiences, knowledge base and everything, that your average everyday CO2 level is going to be between the 400s and 500s. You come into a small area, I start having a conversation with somebody, we sit there and talk for 15-20 minutes in a car or something like that. You could possibly raise that CO2 level to, 600, 700, maybe 800 if y'all are really going crazy in there. But average CO2 temperatures in the room, about 400. Once these plants start getting bigger, you're going to notice this number being closer to 400 instead of 420, 430, 440. It's going to be down by 380, 390, 400, and that's because these plants are sucking the CO2 out of this room. They are just pushing and driving, and they're just trying to get everything they can get. So we're going to try and add some more CO2. I've never used one of these in this big of a space. The only time I've used one of those was in like a 3x3 grow tent, and it seemed to work very well. I'm hoping that I can at least bring this CO2 up to about 700-800 in here. And honestly, I think that's going to be a little hard to achieve with just this bag. I'm hoping at least 600. I want to see a noticeable difference with it. If I come in here and it's at the 460s constantly instead of the 420s, I don't think it's going to be economically worth doing. It just won't make sense, because this bag is the larger bag they made. It's a $50 bag. I'm probably going to buy another one just to try and maximize the CO2 in here. Honestly, I just don't think this bag is enough. That's why I'm going to buy another one. But that bag's $50. This was $20. So back to what I was saying earlier, we got a $150 air conditioner. We have a $20 sensor over there. We have a $50 in our humidifier, dehumidifier, and controller for it. So that's 200. We're at about what, 220 right now. This CO2 monitor was about $20. So we're at 240. This was $50. So 290. Let's call it $300 right now that we're in the light. I spent $80 on this light. So $380. Honestly, it's not too bad for air control, humidity control, light control, 640 watts of light. I mean, for 5 plants, I should be harvesting about a pound and a half in here easily. And it's going to cost me $400. Which I know in some of your states, that's like the price of an ounce. But here in Oklahoma, it's not. You could damn near get a good pound for that. We got super low prices. I can go to the dispensary right now and get some 30% flour, super high quality flour for $80 an ounce. So I know it doesn't seem like, oh, you just spent $500 to grow $500 worth of weed. The $500 investment's going to grow me a lot more than that first harvest. I mean, this light, I'm hoping to get at least a year out of. It is secondhand, so I don't know how much length I really will. But if I can get a year out of this secondhand light, I will be ecstatic. An $80 light lasts me a year growing really good craft cannabis. At that point, I should have 6 or 8 harvests under this light's belt. So you're talking about maybe 5 to 10 pounds of flour. I think it's well worth it. Well worth it. And if you're in another state, like Texas or, I don't know, Pennsylvania or Arkansas, where they're looking to they have legalized, they have some rules on the book, but the prices are crazy. I was talking to somebody at a convention about a year ago, and I'm sure prices have changed and everything, but he was telling me, I want to say it's Pennsylvania, I might be incorrect, but it was somewhere on the East Coast, and they were paying $100 a gram for shatter. And right now, dispensaries won't even carry shatter in Oklahoma because they can't sell it. And if they do sell it, it's got to be for like $5 a gram out the door with taxes. Can't make money on it, so nobody carries it. And I mean, it was just baffling to hear some of these prices that are still out there, because I mean, weed before it was legal in Oklahoma, it was $3,000, $2,000 a pound. It is $800 a pound right now for some of the highest quality flour you can get your hands on. Now there are some guys that have really good brand recognition and stuff like that are getting like $1,500 a pound. Zenoa is one of them. They always get really good prices for their pounds. They grow really good flower, but their brand recognition is what gets them that price. I know a lot of guys that grow really good flower, but no one knows who they are. So when they walk into a dispensary, that guy doesn't care to have, you know, Bob's Buds sitting on the shelf. He wants Zenoa sitting on the shelf, so when that teenager walks in and says, hey, do y'all carry Zenoa? He can say, heck yeah, we got their whole line. And it's $20 a gram. But, that's the industry. But like I said, about $400 invested, so I think it's much worth it. And I think that's all I really had to cover other than topping. So, not ideal, but I'm going to go ahead and turn on the fans. Unplug the light, make sure it doesn't come on. Because the things are still wet and I don't want anything getting burnt. Alright, before I end the video, I'm going to show you how I'm going to top these real quick. This is my second top. How I like to do a second top is I'm just going to come in here on these taller branches and do a little micro topping. Some people like to take a little more. I don't. I'm just going to take that little head off on only the upper branches. Because my whole purpose of doing on this top is to get these branches to catch up to these branches. I want an even canopy. And so what I go through, pull these off so these can catch up. Same thing on this one. And pull these off so these can catch up. But yeah, that's the video today, so stay with it, let me know what you think, and I'm going to keep putting updates on the CO2 bag to see if we can see any noticeable differences for this $70 investment. Is it worth spending $20 on a CO2 monitor, $50 on a bag, probably $100 on bags because I'm going to buy 2 of them. But are we going to get any significant changes on this CO2 monitor? Come back to find out.